Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel here. Back today. We're reacting to a video today. What is this? The Throne of Allah. This was requested. So I don't know what to expect here, but let's just get into it. This is by Merciful Servant. So let's check it out. Okay, interesting disclaimer.
يا نفس إن لم تظفري لا تجزعي.
I think that says who is Allah. Could be wrong.
All the praise is for Allah, who is the author of all existence and the most generous to his creation.
Man, this is intense right off the bat. They got the nasheed in the background. They got the echo on the voice. This is good.
While he is also the all-compelling. He is the only one worthy of our worship, having no partners, no associates, no sons, no daughters, no one whom he must consult. And
I don't know if you guys noticed there, but he said no partners, and it flashed just for a brief moment Jesus on the cross. Pretty interesting. So
no one or anything which has any comparison with him. All the praise is for Allah, who is the King of all who claim sovereignty, the only one who has the right to legislate for his creatures. He is the giver of life. He is the causer of death, while death has no effect upon him, because he is the ever-living, the self-subsisting, the eternal and the only absolute.
goosebumps already.
All the praise is for Allah, who has power over all things, and there is in reality no power and no strength, no influence to cause benefit or detriment except through him. It is he who created this complex world, the seen and the unseen, the evident and the speculative, the earth and all that is on it, and everything that is in it. It is he who sent his messengers and prophets, alayhimus salam, with the common message of strict monotheism, which simply means that there's absolutely no one worthy of worship, no one worthy of our obedience except the Almighty, the One, the Absolute, and who has no partners.
The earlier messages which changed.
That was a great speech. That was very all-encompassing. That was very detailed. And as far as I could tell, it was true. Powerful.
The world in the area in which the prophets were sent. Those messages we know have changed, and even the prophets who brought them, their names are now lost. We just know in general because Allah told us in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا أَنْ يَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ.
I was just going to mention this when before he said this ayat. I was going to mention this one that, it says in the Quran that Allah sent a prophet to every single nation. So if you think about it, there's got to be a lot of them that we have forgotten about, that we've lost the record of. So yeah, very interesting. This is a very interesting verse in the Quran.
I've sent to every nation a messenger, calling people to worship Allah alone and to avoid the worship of false gods. This essential message has been preserved in Islam in a way that it was never preserved before. Not because the message was different, because it was the same message,
Wow.
but because of the fact that there would be no other prophets who would come after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So therefore that message now had to be protected. It had to be preserved in a way none of the earlier messages were preserved.
Wow. That was a great speech there. That is the way he packaged the concept of Islam into something that was brief but yet extremely powerful. That was really good. I've never seen that clip before, and I'd like to maybe find the speaker who said that and watch that whole speech. That was really well said and really well put together. I think if people from the West could understand what he just said and understand the subtleties of what he just said, their view of Islam would be drastically changed, because this is sort of the revelation that I went through when I came to Islam, when I was first learning about it, that all the prophets had the same message. They all had the same message. And even it's possible that even like Hinduism, which came from Krishna, even possibly Buddhism from Buddha, right? It's possible that these guys were prophets. It's possible, because you find all these similarities between Hinduism and Buddhism. Of course, not the overarching creed of them, but within them, if you really study them, you find these similarities. It could be because they're prophetic. And so, yeah, anyway, that was really well said. We'll keep watching. I'll quit talking.
I will tell you this, what you say, you have come to know 40 years back. And what you call the Big Bang is already mentioned in the book which I read, the glorious Quran. It's mentioned 1400 years ago in Surah Anbiya, chapter number 21, verse number 30, which says, Avalam yaral lazina kafaru. Do not the unbelievers see anna samawati wal arda kanat ratkan fataqnahuma, that the heaven and the earth were joined together and we clove them asunder. What you're talking about, the Big Bang,
I try to imagine compressing a spring.
That was jarring.
I push it closer and closer and closer together, so it's smaller and smaller and smaller. And I've stored a tremendous amount of energy in that spring. And when I let it go, it bursts out, it bursts out, it bursts out.
the creation of the universe, which you came to know 40 years back, is already mentioned in this book, the glorious Quran, 1400 years ago. Who could have mentioned that in the Quran? So the atheists will say, maybe someone wrote, maybe it's a fluke, maybe it's a guesswork.
A human being, regardless of who they are, or where they are, or what they do, will have this curiosity. They'll want to know, why am I here? How did I get here? And do I have a purpose? And if so, what is it?
That's a great point. And I actually had a recent debate with an atheist on Instagram. If you want to watch that, you can head over to my Instagram. Full videos there. But I remember he told me, I asked him, how do you answer this why question? He said, well, it's an invalid question. This is what they all say. That there is no reason to ask that question. I think that's such a cop out of an answer. Everyone asks this question. Kids ask this question. Why? Why are we here? And how? How did we get here? It's just a natural question that we all ask at some point in our life.
The only one who would really be able to answer that question would be the Creator himself. If there is a Creator, it would be up to him to tell us why we were created and what he expects from us and what this life is really about. Allah has shown the people from the time of Adam until right now, has shown the people what he wants from them. And it's a very simple thing, and that is that worship be for him alone without any partners. In fact, we know this life to be a test from Almighty God. That's why we're born, and that's why we die, because there has to be a beginning and an end for us to be tested on. The next life, after this life, no one will ever die again. A bad person or a good person. Both are brought back, and they continue to live in the next life, either in good shape or not so good shape, depending on how they did on the test. The worship of the God of Abraham, that was what was taught by these prophets.
The Lord of the Arsh and Kursi. We're talking about the Lord of the worlds. Alhamdulillah.
I just got a little bit confused there. He said the God of Abraham. I just for a brief moment, it sounded like he was proposing that Abraham was a god. But just in case anybody else had the same idea, it's not what he was saying. He's saying the God that Abraham spoke about and the God that Abraham prayed to.
Rabbil Alameen. We're talking about the Lord of the entire universe and beyond. The entire universe and beyond. You know, we live in this dunya and we are fascinated with this dunya which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala indeed has created in a beautiful manner. We're fascinated. There are over billions of people which live on this dunya at this moment in time. Over 6 billion people that live on the dunya at this moment in time. This dunya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so big that there is space in this dunya for billions and billions and billions or more people. But what is this dunya in comparison to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created out there?
Good question.
This dunya is insignificant. This dunya is meaningless to Allah. It means nothing. It is worthless. So worthless, compare it with the sun. The sun is one star. You know more science than me. You'll be able to tell me better. Take this planet Earth and you place it inside the sun and you will be able to place 1.3 million Earths in the sun. 1.3 million Earths in the sun.
Wow.
Allahu Akbar. Allah is the greatest.
Allahu Akbar.
The sun is one star. One star. There are stars out there which are millions of times bigger than the sun. You tell me this, that you need millions and millions of stars to make one galaxy. And then you tell me this, that there are zillions of galaxies out there. Let me tell you on top of this, my friend. After this, whatever you see above,
You know, this kind of stuff is interesting because you can take this one of two ways when you start talking about this, how small and insignificant we are and how big everything is, you know, in space. And really, it's, if you have God, this is like amazing, and it's humbling, and it makes you realize how great God is and how powerful God is, right? But then if you don't have God, on the other hand, and you're like an atheist and you think about this, it can easily put you in like a very dark state of mind, like very nihilistic, where you're just like, oh, well, then nothing really matters. You know, this is actually a popular trend, like a TikTok or a reel I've seen a few times, where somebody mentions something that happens in their life, like they fail a test or something like this. And then like, does it really matter? And it like zooms out of the earth, you know? But if you just take that concept in a vacuum without the context of God, then it can easily lead you to nihilism, because anything that happens, you can say, oh, well, does it really matter? Because we're just so small. Like, you see what I mean? I can just go murder somebody. Does it really matter? Because the earth is so small. So this is, you have to be very careful thinking about this stuff if you don't have a strong foundation in God, in your worldview.
when you raise your head and you look above, whatever you see above, the zillions and zillions and zillions of galaxies, let me tell you, this is everything there is within the first heaven. Everything there is within the first heaven, and Allah is the creator of 7 heavens. 7 heavens.
I see now why they made the disclaimer at the beginning that this video would not show you of anything of the unseen world.
And the distance between the first heaven and the second heaven is 500 years. You know,
Oh wait, did he just? I could be wrong. I wasn't listening super well, but did he just imply that you could see what was within the first heaven? Because I thought that the heavens were. I could be wrong here too, but I thought that the heavens were not visible to our human eye. But maybe he didn't imply that, or maybe he did. I don't know.
The distance that can be covered in 500 years, at what speed? Only Allah knows. Only Allah knows. But it will take 500 years to get from the first heaven to the second heaven. 500 years from the second to the third, third to the fourth, fourth to the fifth, fifth to the sixth, sixth to the seventh. Every time it will take 500 years. After the seven heavens,
it would be interesting to see the hadith. I think that's probably based on a hadith. Maybe I'm wrong, but it'd be interesting to see that actual hadith.
وَسِعَ كُرْسِيُّهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. You all read the Ayatul Kursi. You all know the Ayatul Kursi. After this, you have the Kursi of Allah. You have the chair of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know these seven heavens that we've just talked about. In comparison to the Kursi of Allah, they're non-existent. They're meaningless. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has given an example in a hadith just to give us a little bit of understanding with regards to the seven heavens in comparison to the Kursi of Allah. Take a ring from your finger, take it off, the small ring that you have, and place it, let's say, in a desert, the Sahara Desert. It's the biggest desert in the world. You know that ring that we take off from our fingers and place it in the Sahara Desert? What comparison is in between the ring and the Sahara Desert? Nothing. Nothing. The seven heavens.
Now the mathematicians are going to say, well, it's not nothing.
Is the ring, and the Kursi of Allah is the Sahara Desert.
Wow.
After the Kursi of Allah, you have the Arsh of Allah. وَكَانَ أَرْشُهُ عَلَى الْمَاءِ. You have the Arsh of Allah. Again, Rasulullah has explained, so just so that we can understand. Take the ring, place it in the desert. This time, the ring is the Kursi and the Arsh is the desert. What is the Kursi in comparison to the Arsh of Allah? Nothing. Then you have angels which carry the Arsh of Allah.
To be honest, I don't know what a Kursi is.
Their heads are in the seventh heaven and their feet are in the lowest earth. My friends, then you have the Lord of the Earth and Kursi. لا تدركه الأبصار ويدرك الأبصار وهو اللطيف الخبير. He is beyond the size of Allah, who Allah is, what Allah is. The greatness of Allah is beyond the comprehension of my little mind.
Caesar warning.
This is the being that you and I are messing with.
This is good to remember, I think, especially before you make dua, before you do your prayer. It's good to remember who you're praying to and who you're praying in front of, because I think it puts you in the right space mentally and emotionally and spiritually before you make your prayer. I mean, I like this ayat because it gives us a good perspective on how Allah can see us and how dimensions work. So it's kind of like if we look at something like a two-dimensional creature, say a two-dimensional creature living in this piece of paper or this book, it could only go this way and it can only go this way. It lives in 2 dimensions and not 3. And when we see that from 3 dimensions, it's like we can see it like a map. Like we can almost guess where it's going to go. We can see where the boundaries are, all this stuff, right? But from its perspective, it has no depth perception. It can't see up or down. It only knows forward, back, side to side. And so perhaps Allah kind of sees us like we would see a 2-dimensional creature, where we can only see so much, but he can see before us, he can see behind us, he can see everything. That's powerful. Typo there. Wow. Okay, guys, that was a pretty powerful video. We find it kind of jarring sometimes when they suddenly switch between speakers. It's like you're really following that speaker's train of thought, and all of a sudden, boom, you switch into another one. But I guess looking back at the whole video as a comprehensive whole, there's some good stuff in there for sure, and it sort of has an overall theme of the incomprehensible vastness and greatness of Allah. So props to these speakers here: Khalid Yassin, Bilal Phillips, Zakir Naik, Yusuf Estes, Sheikh Ahmad Ali. So, and thank you to Merciful Servants for putting this video together. And thank you all for watching very much. May God bless you. See you in the next one, hopefully. Masalam.